Hey guys, welcome back to Cyber Launch and our series on creating your own AI chatbot with Voiceflow. I'm Phil Wilkinson, and in this episode, we will be going over the process of setting up your Voiceflow account, starting your first chatbot project, and then we're going to move straight into designing a basic chatbot that can engage in simple conversations. If you missed episode 1, we went over what a chatbot is. Feel free to check it out here. And if you can, hit the like on the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Okay, ready to start? Let's go. Okay, guys, let's jump straight into building our first chatbot then. So, first thing you need to do is obviously head over to www.voiceflow.com. You'll find a link in the description below. Once you get there, if you haven't already created an account, if you click on Get Started, that's going to prompt you for your email address and bits and bobs like that. You can also use things like a Google account to log in. Okay, the first time you log in, it's going to ask you to create a workspace. That's just basically you can create multiple workspaces with, I think, the upgraded version. Not sure about the free trial or the free version. But pretty much call it whatever you want, whether you want to call it your agency name, or if you have a larger agency and you wanted to separate it out into different, departments, stuff like that. That's what that's for. So yeah, we've called ours Cyber Launch, as you can see at the top here. But if you want to create a new workspace or change it, that's fine too. This is what you're going to see when you first log in. Obviously, you've got bits here that you can do a Voiceflow tutorial. You've got new assistant, which is obviously how you create a new bot. Invite is to invite team members to collaborate. Same as over here with team and billing, you can do that as well. You've also got a extensive library here of different documentation and guides and best practices to help you if you get stuck. There's a Discord community as well, so you can jump in that, ask questions. I think there's members of the actual Voiceflow team that do regularly answer questions and post stuff in there as well, so that's quite useful. Settings, not much going on. Delete the workspace, create a new workspace. And then get help is obviously going to open up an email so you can actually go and request help from the Voiceflow team. And they do also have their own Voiceflow chatbot assistant on here. From stuff that I've asked it about, it's okay. It's not brilliant. It's obviously working to the best of its abilities, but yeah, if you have a more complex question, it might be worth going to the Discord or to the actual support line rather than trying to ask the assistant, because it doesn't always know what you're asking it. But other than that, that's pretty much how the dashboard looks. Not much else to it. So we will then jump into creating our first assistant. You can click on here, new assistant, give it a name. So let's call this test bot. Modality, that's going to be whether you're inputting chat as in text or inputting it as voice. So chat is obviously what we're going to go for. This is your most common one. This is your chatbot on a website or your messenger chatbot, your email chatbot, that kind of stuff. Voice is obviously more things like if you wanted it on a automatic phone answering system, or if you wanted to use it on, say, like Google or Alexa, Siri, that kind of stuff. Obviously, we're going to go for chat. Language does have quite a vast variety of different languages available to do it in. We're going to just stick with English for now and then continue. Here you can, again, add in team members if you want other people to collaborate on it. We're not going to do that for now, so we're just going to click on Create Assistant. Close off that. So this is what you're going to be first presented with when you first create a new assistant. I think you can turn this off so it doesn't like just put all this on there to start with, because to be honest, you're probably going to end up deleting it. But yeah, so this is the workflow dashboard. On the left-hand side, we've got a few other bits and pieces. So these are all our tools for what we're going to use for dragging and dropping to create our workflows. Content, this is where we're going to add in our knowledge base, any variables, functions, components, that sort of stuff, intents and entities. These are things we're going to go over later. You've also got in here transcripts. This is for when it's actually up and running, so you can go back and see what questions were asked and what the answers were, which can be really useful for debugging. Analytics, again, not going to have any at the moment because it hasn't been used, but this is going to show you who's been using it and when. And then integration, this is again for when we've actually finished building it. This is going to be where we can get the code to install it onto a site. And you can also add in things like what you want to call it, how it appears, what the description is. So obviously, if we click on the Voiceflow one here, this says Voiceflow Assistant. It's obviously got Voiceflow's logo on there. We're going to be able to change all that, so we can put our own logo in. We can call it, Cyber Launch Assistance, and then it will have like any of these bits where it's like the strap line, the colors, all that sort of stuff. We can actually edit. And I think you can take out this bit at the bottom, so where it says Assistant by Voiceflow. That's probably a paid for a premium version of it, where you'll be able to take it out. Again, yeah, you can change the upload image of the actual chat bot as well. So obviously the Voiceflow's, you can see it's got Voiceflow's logo. We could actually put our own logo in there. I tend to find that it's probably best to keep it as some kind of chat bubble, just because it's more obvious as to what it is, rather than if it's just this, you might just mistake it on the page for it being a logo. All right, down here on the left as well, you see token usage. So this is when you do a call to ChatGPT or any other type of, Gemini or anything like that. This is going to show you how many tokens you've used. So again, I think in the free one, you still get the 2 million tokens, and I think you get slightly more if you upgrade. I'd have to look and double check that, but you do get quite a lot anyway. As long as you're using something like GPT 3.5, it's quite cost effective, so you can really get like low down on the tokens. If you start using higher ones like GPT 4, you're going to start seeing those tokens like used up quite quickly. But yeah, again, we'll look at that a little later on. Help, obviously, just all the documentation, tutorials, and community. Okay, so now we've had a good look around the dashboard and Voiceflow itself, and we know kind of what's going on. Let's get started with actually building our first bot. So I've cleared off the screen here, as you can see. So we've just got the start button left. This is obviously where, when it first loads, this is where it's going to start from. So everything goes from here. So the first thing we obviously want it to do is have some kind of message. So when we actually, if you look at the Voiceflow one, obviously the first thing this is doing, it's saying, "Greetings, I'm Voiceflow Virtual Assistant," gives you a bit of a description and all that sort of stuff. And then there's a few suggested questions that you can ask, or you can start new chat and actually start clicking and typing. There we go. Yeah, so I can type in there and ask it a question. So we need it to, first of all, do that. So in the chat. So first thing we are going to do is we're going to go to talk onto text, and we're going to click and literally drag and drop that onto there. And for now, we'll just leave it as new block. It's not too much of a problem. As it gets bigger, it's probably best to start naming your blocks, just because it gets a little bit, confusing otherwise, going, which new block am I clicking on? But for now, we'll leave it as that. So enter text. So we're going to keep it nice and simple. So my name is Ollie. How can I help you? So that'll be our first message. We can also, just to make it like look a bit better, you can get this AI generate. So this will generate variants. If you wanted to put in generate free variants, this is going to come up with some different ones. So it just looks a little bit different every time. It's not the same message every time. You can add these in. So yeah, hi, I'm Botley. How can I assist? Welcome, I'm Botley. What can I do for you? Greetings, I'm Botley. How may I help you today? Okay, and then that's our first message. So if we were to then drag from the start onto the block, make sure when you are putting onto block, unless you specifically want something to go to that message or the next part down, just make sure it's onto this area of the block. because sometimes it can not quite work in the flow properly. So it's just best practice. And if we were to just run that as it is now, run tests, it's going to do that, but that's pretty much it. It doesn't go anywhere else. So let's go back to our designer. So the next thing we need to do is we need to add in a listen. We're going to use capture, and this is going to where we can get the user to input something, and we're going to see what they're going to say and pass that on to our next step. So yeah, we want the entire user reply. That will go to last utterance. This is a default variable, so it's just best to leave it as that because that works fine. And you can add in, there is extra actions you can add in if you wanted to, like, go straight to block, go to an intent, whatever the case may be. But for now, we're going to keep it nice and simple, and we're just going to capture what the user inputs. And then obviously we need somewhere for it to go. So to keep this nice and easy, we're going to use AI. We're going to use response AI, drop that in there. So we'll leave that as block 2, and we're going to drag straight into there. So that's our user response going straight in. We haven't set up a knowledge base as of yet. So for now, we'll leave it as the AI model. We can leave it as the default prompt, which I believe is in content and knowledge and in here. So there it'll just use the system prompt, which is, you are an FAQ AI chat assistant. Information will be provided to help answer the user's questions. Always summarize your response to be as brief as possible and be extremely concise. Your responses should be fewer than a couple of sentences. So we can leave it as that. GPT 3.5 Turbo, as you can see, that's going to be the lowest amount of tokens that you use. The higher up you go with GPT-4 and GPT-4 Turbo, you are obviously going to be spending a lot more on your tokens. So the temperature, this we can pretty much just leave this as 1 for now, but to sort of give you an understanding of what the temperature means, this is how deterministic it will present the answer. So if you were to put it more random, it's going to be a lot more diverse in the potential answers it could give based on the input. Whereas obviously the lower you the more deterministic you put it, it's going to be more accurate and stick to what it knows about that subject. So it can be useful to have it a little bit higher or a little bit lower depending on the outcome you want to get from it. What I'd say is leave it as 1 for now, and see what responses you get and have a play around with it. You might prefer it to have a little bit more randomness into it, but again, it's kind of going to be down to your choice. Max tokens, this is going to be how many tokens it sends across as and when you do a response. So depending on the type of input that it's going to have, whether it's going to be a large question, whether it needs to use a lot of knowledge base, again, this is going to be something you're going to have to tweak over time. But again, for now, we'll leave it as the default, which is 128. Chunk limit 3 is pretty much default. That works quite well. Chunks are basically when you start asking for information from the knowledge base, it's how many bits of the knowledge base information it will use. The easiest way I can explain it to you. So let's leave that as that for now. If we head back to our designer, so our prompt here. So what we're going to say is nice and simple just for now, is answer the user's question. And we're going to add in the last utterance, which is what this capture is doing. And as you keep clicking on that, here you can obviously override the settings here if you want. If you didn't want a particular block to be the system one or to use the knowledge base, we could override it, but we're not going to. We're just going to leave it as that. If you want, you can do a preview of it. So if you click on preview and then put in as an example what the last utterance was. So let's say, for example, this was a chatbot for an e-commerce site. You could go on here and go, what products do you have? Click generate. and this is going to show you potentially what you're going to get. Now, obviously, we haven't got a knowledge base, so this is very much going to ChatGPT and going to give you the response that it doesn't have any physical products. But that's fine. For this example, we can just see what it's doing. So that's all good. Now, obviously, once we've got to that point, we could just go to that and go to actions and end, and that would literally be our entire flow. So that's going to be, hello, my name is Botley, how can I help you today? The user puts in a question, it goes off to ChatGPT and answers the question, and that's the end of the workflow. But we don't want it to do that, because obviously that's not what chatbots tend to do. They tend to come back and say, is there anything else I can help you with today? Okay, so obviously now we want it to go somewhere else to basically loop back around and give us this sort of infinite question loop. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to put in another talk. And we're going to go from the output to in there. In the talk, we're going to put in there, is there anything else I can help you with today? Give it some responses. There we go. Okay, and then what it's going to do, we're going to do the same. We could do the same where we go back to here, but it wouldn't look very good, because as soon as you went back to there, it would start again and go with the hello, my name is Botley. But what we can do is we can go into capture user reply, and then it'll go back into that. So that gives us our loop without it using the initial conversation. So now if we were to click on run test, let's go with, what can I do for you today? Now, obviously, we know already that if we put in something like, what products do you have, we're going to get a response that it's an AI, it doesn't have any products. So we're going to treat this a little bit like ChatGPT, and we're going to ask it a question that you could ask ChatGPT, because that's probably the response you're going to get back. So let's go with, tell me about chatbots. So if we just quickly look back through this is just the debug mode. So this is telling you what it's used and how long it took and all that sort of stuff. It's giving you the answer. So chatbots are computer programs designed to simulate human conversation through artificial intelligence. And then it's looping back into there and then down to there. So if we now type another answer, so let's go with, tell me about AI. It should around. There we go. So yes, AI, or artificial intelligence, refers to the simulation of human intelligence. And as you can see, you've got this infinite loop of it asking a question, it answering the question, and then continuing back round. And that is as pretty much as simple as you can get it. Obviously, we're not using a knowledge base, so this is pretty much just basically you asking ChatGPT questions. So you're going to get particularly any particular answer that you would normally get from ChatGPT. What we can then do is start adding in your own knowledge base to make this a little bit more useful. So now we're going to add in our knowledge base to actually make this a little bit more useful for our business. And the way we're going to do this is we're going to head over to content on the left hand side, and obviously make sure you're on this knowledge bit here. As you can see, I've already added one in, but all you'd need to do is go add data source. You can add plain text, which is literally just copying and pasting into a window. Upload file, which is obviously what I've done here. You can upload text, CSVs, I think PDFs and Word documents as well. URLs, you can put like a direct URL to your website in there, and it will actually trawl through your website and get as much of the information out of it as possible. This can be a really good way of doing it if you don't want to create a separate document and all your information is actually already available on your website. Sitemap, again, you could do sitemap instead of the URL, where if you wanted, because it doesn't necessarily go with all of the site if you put in just the one URL. So if you wanted to put in like your entire website, then it's probably best to use sitemap. But I believe there's also a limit on how many pages it will import from a sitemap. So if you have a massive site that has hundreds of pages, then it might not actually take everything, and that's where you might actually be better off with URLs anyway. But to be fair, the majority of the information that you're going to probably want to put in here is going to be stuff like that's from your about us, your products, that sort of thing. So if you then have hundreds of other pages because you have a blog, it might not necessarily want all the blog information, or if it's other information like pictures or something like that, it's not going to take those anyway. So for now, easiest way for it to do it is have everything into a text file. I will give this text file, you can download it if you want to play around with it as an example. And then this is just a fake business that I've used ChatGPT to create a load of random business information that doesn't really exist, but for the sake of creating an example, it's useful for us to do that. So for all you do for that, click upload, go to through the browse window, click on the file you want, and then upload it, and it'll sit there for a little while doing a check and reading through it. And once it's got a tick, it's ready to use. You can change the refresh on it. Obviously, you can see all the data's in there. So if you want it to resync it, or if you want to change the refresh rate, if this was, say, like a website that you maybe change data regularly, you might want it to do it daily, weekly, monthly. But if it's something that's never really going to change, like for example, this obviously is a text document that's we've uploaded, so it doesn't need to be refreshed anytime else. It's only if it's hosted elsewhere I would suggest doing that. You can obviously delete it, you can download it, all that sort of stuff. Now, again, when we do this, it's probably best to check on the system prompt for ChatGPT. So you can just use the basic one. We can leave that in there, and that works absolutely fine. I will show you a better prompt as well. Again, I will provide a copy of the prompt for you to download in the description. Okay, so the prompt that I've prepared earlier is going to go in here. So this just gives it a lot more context and should help it give a lot more tailored response. Obviously, I say you'll have access to this. Feel free to, if you wanted to use it for your own business, that's fine. Just check out the bits that obviously, like the name of the company and that sort of stuff. So you are going to have to go through it and make it make sense for your business. So yeah, save that. So if we now go back to our designer, just make sure this is actually using it. So what we need to do now is obviously change this data source for the response to be knowledge base. We can add in additional instructions in there, but for now that's fine. We're just going to answer the user's question. It's going to use the knowledge base. You can override the prompt settings here again if you wanted to add in a different prompt for this, but we're not. We're going to use the normal prompt. And we also now have this extra option that it's come out as not found path, which this basically means it's what to do if it doesn't know how to answer. So what we're also going to do now is we're going to put in here another bit, which is going to be a text box. In there, we're going to say something along the lines of, sorry, I am unable to answer that question. And we're going to right click on that, go block color, change it to red, just because it makes it easier to know that that's a negative response. And what we're going to do with that, we're going to go from the output of that, and we're going to go into our loop box. So back to, is there anything else I can do for you? In a future one, when we go in a little bit more advanced, we can actually look at a way we can add in some error handling to help us in the future debug these issues a little bit better. But for now, keep it nice and simple. We're just going to say, sorry, we can't answer that, and go back to our loop. So if we now look at our test, so hello, my name is Botley, how can I help you today? Now, if you go on the basis that we've now added in a knowledge base, the knowledge base is for this fake company that I've made up, which is basically a marketing coaching and course company. So obviously, if somebody goes onto their website, they're going to be asking questions about the courses or the coaching, not going on there and asking what AI is necessarily. So it probably won't be able to answer if we try that. What is AI? Yeah, because it's using the knowledge base and that isn't in the knowledge base, it's not really going to give us a proper answer. So that's fine. So if we now go and actually ask it a question about the company, so can I have your company contact details and spell company correctly? Right. Yeah, there we go. So now it's actually using our knowledge base. It's giving us the email or the phone number, and then obviously looping back around. And again, we can go, what courses do you offer? And it's going to give us an answer on it. Now, obviously, in a future one, we can also add in stuff about the products so we can actually give a lot more information about it. But for now, it's just giving a great overview. And this is all we want. This is like, we don't want massive long answers. This, we can add more depth into it. But for now, we just want simple, clean answers. And that's pretty much it. That's our basic bot working. We haven't used intents, we haven't used buttons, but those we're going to go over in the next sort of episode. If you've got any questions about what we've gone over, feel free to drop a comment, and I'll aim to get back to you as soon as I can. As I say, everything that we've gone over, I'll create a template for this so you can actually download it and play around with it. Or just upload it and start using it. And there'll also be all the other documents, so the fake knowledge base, the prompt. I'll make sure all those are available in the description as well. Feel free to use them, play around with them, and hopefully you will be able to start building your own chatbot today.